How's everyone doing today? Welcome to today's session on Don't Try to Predict the Market. Now, let's think about this. How many of you would love to be able to predict where the market is going? Like, just think. Say in a month from now, you knew if it was going to be up or down, or say 5 years, or even 10 years. Wouldn't that be awesome? We'd all be millionaires, right? We'd be able to know where the tide was going and how everything was going to be if we invested, right? Now, it'd be great to know that, but wouldn't that be a little scary too? Like, wouldn't that be a little scary? Well, we know that that's not a goal because it's unrealistic, but what we do know is that we can invest in the market and not worry about where it's going to go, but know that we're going to be in the market. That's the important thing. It's not about investing and timing the market. It's about time in the market. Now, when we talk about markets, or let me go back. My name is Andrea Davis. I've been with Prudential for about 5 years. However, I've been in the financial industry for over 20 years. I am a financial planner, and my clients appreciate that I give them an opportunity to put a plan together to reach and achieve whatever their long-term or short-term financial goals are. Now, that being said, let's think about terms that we use when we talk about the market, right? Now, oftentimes when you begin to invest, people will say, oh, the market is so volatile. It's so volatile, right? Now, when I say that, what do you think about? What thought comes to mind when I say the market is volatile, right? Anyone? No one? Uncertainty, okay? What about, anxiety? Anybody have fear when you think about the market? Oh no, it's gonna crash. Oh, where's it going? We think about risk, we think about loss, all those dramatic words that kind of bring us to a level of anxiety when we talk about volatility. But here's the thing, when you're investing, volatility should not be something you worry about. You shouldn't be afraid of what the market does. One thing we know for certain, we always say, one thing about change is that it's going to be. So we're certain that there's always going to be change, right? Right? We know for certain that there's always going to be change. Well, with the market, we know with certainty that there's going to be volatility. But understanding that the market is going to be volatile and knowing that we shouldn't be afraid of volatility as an investor is important to remember. Now, today, we're going to talk about things of what's going on currently in the market. We're going to talk about market volatility basics, and we're going to talk about tips for investing in a volatile market. Now, let's look at this slide. We look at the S&P 500 index, which is just the Standard & Poor's top 500 companies that they're basing this off of. And we look at what we've been going on since, let's say, for the past almost 11 years, right? So over about 131 months, which is close to 11 years, we've had serious growth in the market, right? The market has been it's going up and going up. And we've been worried about where's the market going to go, right? And then in 2022 was when that time came where everyone was like, oh, when is this next shoe gonna drop? And that's when it hit, or excuse me, not 2022, 2020, when we had anyone want to tell me? The COVID pandemic, right? We had the COVID pandemic and it just kind of stopped everything. And we all became a little bit uncertain, right? The market pulled back and that whole thought process of the other shoe is now dropped. Where's the market going to go? Right? We all were like, oh. First of all, let me ask, does everyone here invest in the market? Okay. Very good. Now, if you think you don't invest in a market, do you have a 401k? Okay. So even if you don't do it outside of your retirement, you are investing in the market in your 401k. And so, just so you know. Now, when we saw that pullback of the market in early 2020, and everyone became uncertain, it was like, oh no, what happened? You looked at your retirement funds or your investment account, and it looked like, oh wow, let me get out. I don't know if I can handle this. All my money, I'm losing money. That market volatility and that fear of what's going to be next, it happened, and people began to be very, very uncertain of what was going to happen. So some people began to pull out of the market. But look what happened. Look at this chart, right? Even though it pulled back, what began to happen? All of a sudden, the market started going back up again. So if you were one of those investors that said, you know what, I think I don't want to stomach any more of this, I'm going to take my money out, then you missed probably one of the good days to be invested in the market. And that's the thing about the volatility of the market. Understanding, if you are an emotional investor and you decide, you know what, I can't take these losses, I'm going to get out and sit on the sidelines, right? Then you missed some of the best days as the market began to come up. Or you're one of those investors that started seeing the market run up, and you're like, oh, let me throw a bunch of money into some of these volatile, uncertain stocks, right? Then you might have missed some of the important days that would have really helped your account as well. So if you look at this, let me see here. If you actually looked at this, and we have factors and events that influence market volatility. So looking at these different things. Now, mind you, this is not a complete list, but this is just to give you some ideas. In the 1980s, we had a pullback of the market, right? And then it started going back up again. Then we had in the 90s, we had the housing issue, and it pulled back and it started going back up again. Then early in 2000s, we had, September 11th attack. We had all those different things, and the markets pulled back. And then we had in 2010 and 2020, we had oil prices, we had the Greek debt crisis, we had all those different things where the market pulled back a little bit, but it went back up again. So if we look at this, if you had $10,000 in 2002 and you put your money into the market and just let it go up until 2021, the end of 2021, that $10,000 investment would be worth over $61,000. If you had $10,000 and you pulled out and got back in, pulled out and got back in, that $10,000 investment would have been about $28,000. So timing the market is not something, if you've got a long-term goal, is not something you want to do. What you want to do is have your monies in the market and let them do what it's going to do. If it goes down, I'm a long-term investor. If it goes up, I'm a long-term investor. You don't want to care about it because you have a goal for those monies and you wanted them to do whatever it is the market is going to do, so that when you get to the point where you're ready to utilize those funds, they're available to you exponentially. Now, the important thing, like I said, is having those long-term, short-term goals, right? And those long-term and short-term goals should not be, I want to predict the market. I want to have as much money as I need so I can take care of myself. Are those goals? No, those aren't goals. Those are just ideas, right? Your goals should be specific. Your goals should be realistic, right? Say your child wants to go to college. They want to go to Keene University, and it's $20,000 to go to Keene University. Well, $20,000 a year, and they should be there for 4 years because I'm only funding 4 years. Then that's what, $80,000? So my goal, if I'm sending my child to Keene University, is to have $80,000 by the time my child gets ready to go to college, right? That's a goal, right? Your goals should be specific. And most experts say you should write them down. There's a verse, I believe, in the Bible that says, write the vision, make it plain, right? So if you're going to have a goal, write it down. Write it down so you can check back on it and make sure that it's still, you're still working towards what that goal is, and be specific on it. Remember too, say, okay, I want to purchase a home. So I want to have, a nice down payment to purchase my dream home, right? Write that down. And then when you achieve that down payment, purchase that home. But understand too, okay, once I have the home, I might want to put a pool in the back. I might want to, redo my kitchen, make it a little more personal. If that's the case, then just be sure to write down that goal and be okay with changing them, tweaking them, making them so that you can reach them. The next one, another tip is avoid emotional investing. Remember I said where you had an investor that just stayed in the market, took that $10,000 and let it ride? They had $60,000. Don't be an emotional investor where, oh, I'm afraid. I don't know where the market's going to go. What was your goal? What did you want this money to do? Let it do what it's going to do. Compound and let it grow so that when you reach the point where you can now purchase whatever that goal was or do whatever that goal was, then those monies are there and available to you. And another way to avoid being an emotional investor is when you see the market going up, look at what you've done. Are your goals still the same? Are your allocations in with your investment still the same? If they're not, look at them and say, maybe it's time we reallocate to get back to what we anticipated and what was comfortable for me. So if we're way high in, say, tech stock and other things, let's reallocate. Or if the market has gone down and I'm really low in something, maybe it's time to reallocate. Just reallocate, but continue to stay in the market. You don't want to miss those great days that are in the market, staying in the market. Now, tip number 3, invest for the long term, right? It's not a roulette wheel. We're not going in and saying, let's see if it's going to hit whatever your number is. This is a long-term investment. Continue to stay in that market. Don't allow those markets declines and the volatility to determine what you want to do. Continue to stay the course. Stay the course. Now, when we look at this, we have different types of declines in the market. We have pullbacks where it's just the market kind of pulls back a little bit. And those happen about 3 times a year. And those pullbacks are about anywhere between 5 and 10% of what the market is in, right? And those happen pretty frequently in a year. Now, then we have the corrections. Now, those corrections are where the market pulls back anywhere between 10 and 20%. Now, those might happen maybe once a year. And I think we're kind of like in a little bit of what we would call a bear market, where up until the elections, we've seen that our market has pulled back. You guys all watch what's going on? So we see now that they're often talking about, oh, we're approaching a bear market, or we're approaching a recession, we're approaching. You heard the narrative, right? And that's where the market has declined more than 20%. And those occurrences happen about once every 4 years, right? But again, know that those are part of the market volatility. And when you've invested for the long term, you understand those things may happen. But my investment, what I'm looking to do, is going to be whatever it is. And so I don't really want to focus on what the market is doing because my long-term goal is more important. Now, one thing to remember, bull markets have been stronger than bear markets since 1946. And what that means is, even though we will see a bear market happen, usually what happens with a bear market, right after the market starts working itself back up. Every single time since 1946. And if you pull out of the market again, I say it again, if you take your monies out, you'll miss some of those good days. And if you look right here on the chart, it shows that every time we've seen the market pull back, 2010, it pulled back, we run back up. It pulled back in 2008, we run back up. Because that's just part of the volatility of the market. So understanding your long-term goals should be what's most important. Tip number 4, invest regularly. Now what this means is it can take some of the emotion out of your investing when you invest regularly. So say, okay, every month I'm gonna take $200 and invest in the market. Or every year I'm gonna make sure I put $1,200 into the market. Or every month I'm gonna put $100 into the market. What that's called is dollar cost averaging. And what that allows is for you to invest no matter what the market is doing. If it's up, that $100 might buy you 5 shares of Apple, hypothetically. And if it's down, you might be able to buy 10 shares of Apple, hypothetically. But it doesn't matter because it's called dollar cost averaging because no matter what, you're in it. And if you buy high, your dollar amount, your cost basis might be a little bit more. But when you buy low, it kind of evens out your cost basis. So being sure to do that type of dollar cost averaging where you're investing systematically helps you alleviate some of that, anxiety of investing. Now, I have to always note this disclaimer. This does not guarantee a profit, and it doesn't protect you against loss, but it will allow you to buy more shares when the market is low and less shares when the market is high, okay? Now, missing the best days, like I said before, can be costly. It really can hurt you. But what we know is that markets have been resilient. Like I said before, markets, even in those declines, they come right back. It's been proven time and time again that markets are resilient. No matter what happens, even in the declines, they come right back. Now, tip number 5, don't put all your eggs into one basket. Diversify. Does everyone know that term? That means let's have a little bit of money spread across so that when one area of the market is down, maybe over here in another area that I have investments in might be up. It kind of weighs it out and kind of brings balance to you. But you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So let's just look at this, right? Let's look at, anybody heard of Bitcoin? Anyone? Anyone seen what Bitcoin has done? I had someone tell me this one time. He said, the one thing you know about Bitcoin is that it's about 13 years old. And what do we know about any 13-year-old? They're volatile, right? And we have seen this. We have seen this. In fact, we've seen this in the last week that Bitcoin that's had this huge run-up is now pretty much bankrupt, But anyway, people that have put all of their money into Bitcoin are really not happy right now. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. And tip number 6 is rebalance your portfolio. Make sure that when you've sat down and talked with your financial advisor that they've looked at what your risk tolerance is and said, okay, this is your risk tolerance, and this is how we're going to invest your monies. And when it starts to look like the market is going up and you have positions that are way up here and your portfolio's out of whack, then it's time to rebalance. Or if you have investments and they're way down here and it's like, oh, we're out of balance again, it's time to rebalance. So rebalance your portfolio at least once a year. Now, realign your investment mix to fit your risk tolerance. And when you talk with a financial advisor, they will talk with you and evaluate, okay, what kind of risk will you stomach? What does that look like? Are you a person that, okay, I am looking at long-term and I don't care what the market does. I'm okay with, put me in something a little risky because I want to see some good growth. And when you're young, definitely, look at that like, okay, I've got a few years. I'm going to keep putting money in so I can stomach a little bit more. However, when you're a little bit older and you're saying, okay, I'm in retirement and I want to use these funds to fund my retirement and take my, annual round the world trip, then you might want to be a little more conservative. But realign whatever your investment risk is to meet your risk tolerance. Now, here's some key takeaways for you. Set and revisit whatever your goals are. And if they change, tweak them. Write them down and make them plain. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. We're investing for the long term. So you can understand today's blip of the market is not going to affect my 20-year goal, right? Or my 10-year goal, right? Focus on the long term. Again, focus on the long term. And invest regularly, regardless of market conditions. Do that consistent investment, $200 a month, once a quarter, once a year. Do it consistently so that you are able to have those dollar cost averaging dollars and diversify. And again, rebalance your portfolio.